ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Armchair Booking Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host. My name is Stupendous Steve Barber, and joining me as my wonderful co-host is Dynamic Dwaylen Davis.
Hey, everybody.
Would say double D, but really that's a triple D.
Yep.
And don't let your eyes deceive you. We are actually wearing matching clothes today.
I know, right?
And apparently I spilled peanut butter on mine earlier. I'm not looking going, oh, well, I mean, it doesn't really show up that bad. I noticed it because I know where it was at. But anyway, today we're actually going to be talking about something that it's a little different, but we're going to talk about, in a way, saying what happens when the fans body shame wrestlers, but it's really what is the stereotypical look of a wrestler supposed to be.
Yeah. And I mean, and it's like I was telling Hope earlier, I'm like, it's not just the fans that do it, but promoters do it as well to, particular wrestlers. So, I mean, we know the Vince McMahon model for a pro wrestler.
Yeah.
But my thing is what, fans' expectations of what a pro wrestler should look like. I don't think there's one, me personally, I don't think there's one particular look.
I don't want to see everybody looking the same.
I don't either, because I don't want everybody I don't want cookie cutter. I want a variety, and we'll get into it more, but like in AEW, you've got your Wardlow, who is a big, Batista looking kind of guy.
Yeah.
You've got Orange Cassidy, who, and I mentioned those two because they had a match on Dynamite last night. Two completely different looks, two completely different physiques, but both of them are great athletes. So it's like everybody doesn't have to look the same.
Exactly. So like I said, something a little different, because we're trying to get away from all the WWE news, because even more has even come out, but it's like now it's to the point now. Okay, like Mick Foley talked about in his book, Ole Anderson was telling him a story, because apparently Ole Anderson had stories all the time, which I can too. I'm not gonna lie, but Ole said this guy, he was walking through like a war zone and he saw like a dead kid, who had been, hit by a bomb or something. Right. Oh, that's just horrible. Walked a little bit further. There were two kids. Oh, that's really bad too. Then later on, there's like 10 kids. Oh, that's kind of bad. And then next thing you know, there's like 100, and he just kind of blew it off. Well,
yeah,
it's kind of what this feels
sadly,
like.
You get numb to it after a while. You don't get shocked anymore.
Yeah. And so now they're saying 12 million over 4 years or something like that. And I'm like, you know what? Just y'all just need to just fire him. Make him sell his own company.
A lot of people are saying that legally they can't because he owns the most shares.
He can be forced to sell those shares.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking. He can be forced to sell his shares.
It wouldn't be the first time. Something like that's happened. So all they have to do is just you start studying like business history, and they'll show you examples. Guess what? They start doing something corrupt. Well, own all the shares. It doesn't matter. You don't need more.
Doesn't matter. Sell them.
Yep. Because once you become publicly traded,
the
public will tell you. Because if you don't sell your shares, they will drop all their shares for one thing, and all of a sudden your shares become not worthless. Much.
Yeah.
So, not totally worthless, but definitely not worth as much. So if you're the only one who owns them, well, big deal.
He wouldn't be making the millions that he's currently making off those shares. So.
Nope, he'd be making like 100.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we'll cover, quite a bit actually, I think, because, there's an incident that happened that we'll get into, and which kind of triggered this. And I really got to thinking about it, across the history of wrestling. But before I start, I want to go ahead and give our contact and listening info. If you'd like to email the show, email it at armchairbookingpodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/armchairbookingpodcast. You can find us on Instagram at Instagram. Of course, you'll look for @armchairbooking. Find us on Twitter @bookingarmchair. Find us on TikTok @armchairbooking. I swear I'm going to make more videos. I was even thinking about that earlier. You can find us on YouTube, for the video platform. And for audio platform, you can find us on just about any audio platform you can think of. If we're not there, let one of us know, let
Yeah.
both of us know by emailing us. And we will do whatever we can to get ourselves added. And while you're there, go hit that subscribe button and give us a rating. Give us a 5-star rating, preferably, but give us some kind of rating to let us know how we're doing. Give us a review. Also, that only helps us, and that help us help you. Help us help you.
Exactly.
Yep. So, but our host is Spreaker, and Spreaker and I'm kind of saying this because I've actually had 2 people in the past week ask me for help starting podcasts, and I recommended them use Spreaker because Spreaker does a lot of the heavy lifting for you.
Right.
Because they automatically distribute the shows to these platforms like Apple, like Google Podcasts, like Amazon, Spotify, iHeartRadio, even JioSaavn, which is located in India. That's one of the ones they have a partnership with. And so, but yeah, definitely go check them out. Go check out our merch at tpublic.com/user/armchair-booking-podcast. And something I haven't even told you about yet. The merch you can get on there, you can get one of these t-shirts, like what Joel and I are wearing right now. And you can also get pillowcases, you can get laptop cases, you can get phone cases, kind of like that one. Notice the reverse colors.
Yeah.
You can get a mask, kind of like the one I was wearing today when I was in the VA, because you still have to wear a mask in there.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I got, though, is no longer available. I found that out this past weekend. You can still get regular coffee mugs. However, you cannot get travel mugs anymore.
Really?
Yep. I actually emailed them and asked. I was like, hey, because I wanted to get another one, partly because my dog chewed the top of this one. But so I just realized I just want to get another mug and have a top that I just
right
back and forth with. And so I emailed, I was like, hey, are the travel mugs no longer available? And they responded, they're like, yeah, unfortunately, we, for now we've stopped offering them. They might return, but and we apologize about that. I'm like, well, that stinks, because I mean, this thing is nice.
Yeah.
I mean, this thing is stainless steel. I mean, and believe me, it keeps your whatever. It's insulated really well, because I mean, I put some nice hot coffee in there, and I'll put about 16 ounces in there. It actually holds closer to about 18 or 20.
Mm-hmm.
But our Keurig at work, I think it actually cheats a little bit. But I'll put in, and you can go up to 10. So what I do is I'll put 8 in there twice, and so and it holds it perfect. And it's some hot stuff. Well, I can't drink it for a while. I mean, I actually have to open the top and let the heat kind of come out. I mean, because so it holds whatever you want, either hot or cold. It holds it really well.
Cool.
So having it hold it too, that's not a bad thing. That's actually a good thing.
Right.
To quote DDP. But you can also find Dwaylen on Twitter at @fat_daddy73.
Mm-hmm.
You can find the other podcast I've been running. That's a non-wrestling podcast, but it's called the Cubicle Chat Podcast. We talk about all sorts of. Dwaylen's actually been a guest on there.
Yep.
And you can also find Dwaylen's YouTube channel, Big and Fat, YouTube and TikTok, where he puts out videos, him and his family, and they're actually pretty funny. You need to go watch them. In fact, you still need to see the one from if you haven't seen it already, see Dwaylen and his daughter doing the 1-chip challenge.
That was hilarious. That was fun.
The only time I've ever seen Dwaylen cry ever. It was I was like, oh man. I mean, I was about to call it and say, hey, Dwaylen gonna be all right. Y'all need to go get his stomach checked, because that looked like it just burned right through the lining.
Yeah.
And when the chip itself was black, that's a sign right there.
And it came in a coffin. I mean, the box was shaped like a coffin.
That's another sign.
That's another sign. And that I blame Savannah, because it was her idea. Of course, me and her, we're partners in crime. So any goofy idea one of us comes up with, it's like, sure, yeah, we'll do it.
She beat you in a chess match again, didn't she?
She beats me at every chess match. I can't beat her.
And you taught her how to play.
I taught her how to play, and I taught her too good. I mean, she sees the board better than we did when we were in chess club.
Yeah, and
that's the thing. She sees,
not just in the chess club.
Yeah,
we were officers.
We were officers
in the chess club.
That's right. But yeah, she sees that board. It's amazing to watch her play, because she just sees it, and it's like every move is laid out for her.
Do I need to start calling her Goodwill Hunting?
Maybe.
She just sees Beethoven right there.
Yeah, Goodwill Hunting, Queen's Gambit, something.
Yeah, I have not watched Queen's Gambit
I
yet.
haven't either. I need to. I've heard it's really good.
Yeah, yeah. My wife and my daughter, they both watched, and they both said it's really good, and neither one of them even play chess. So, um, but and talking about the VA, we've actually talked about you having one of these, but today I actually was given my first CPAP machine, and I was not expecting that. I was expecting just to get fitted for like the mask, and
Yeah.
that was it. But no, they're like, here you go, and show me how to use it, and told me what to do, what not to do, and apparently I got to clean it like once a week with soap, hot water and
Yeah.
soap. They
Yeah.
said do not use any chemicals because
Mm-mm.
they said it's not FDA approved. And I'm still trying to figure out my mask is not FDA approved or the cleaning method's not FDA approved.
I have one of those So Clean machines where it hooks up to my CPAP. I just stick everything in there, and there's a tube that connects everything, and then it just it like disinfects everything.
It just cycles it.
Yeah,
through
it cycles through the mask, through the tubing, through the machine,
okay.
and gets rid of all the germs and stuff.
And apparently I also have a strap I have to put on my head for a few weeks to keep my mouth shut.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I've got I tried that. My head's too big and I can't wear a strap because I tried that before I ended up getting the CPAP. But my head's too big and I never could find a headgear that would work right. But yeah, I'm a mouth breather, so I have a full face mask, covers my nose and my mouth.
I probably should have got that, but she says something about because I have a beard, it's the same as you.
Well, they say that it doesn't suction well, but I don't have any problem with it. I just all I do is I just strap the mask a little tighter to accommodate for this right here on my chin, and it's fine.
I think partly when she was talking about like having the thing with like hold my mouth shut because she said if not the CPAP the air will go in and it goes straight up my mouth, and she said and I will have cotton mouth like you would not believe.
Oh yeah,
she said it's pretty bad. And I mentioned the bongos, the little nose plug bongo things that they gave me before, which those things suck. I'm not even going to try to not be negative about them things. And I mean, I literally blew them out of my nose a couple of times, even though they're supposed to stay right in there. I even had a little strap to hold them in to where the problem with the bongos in you breathe in just fine, but then it's breathing out. Of course, they look like bongo drums.
Yeah.
And the little thing pushes out, so you cannot actually breathe out of your nose. You have to breathe out your mouth,
which dries your mouth out.
And so there's nothing that sucks about them. They would fall out of my nose if I didn't completely blow them out. Of course, as you're moving around through the night, the little straps to hold them in. Of course, it adjusts without you even knowing about it.
And if you snore, that constant vibration is going to push them out anyway. It's
supposed to stop snoring. That's the thing.
Yeah.
And
I don't think there's anything made on this planet that stops me from snoring except that CPAP machine. And I still snore a little bit with it, but it's not. My family can sleep as long as I wear my CPAP.
And that's the thing, when she hooked the machine up and she actually showed me how quiet it is, I'm like,
Yeah.
So I won't be trying it tonight just because, like I said, I don't have any distilled water here. And by the time we finish, here it's going to be by the time I finish processing the files and uploading and doing all the stuff, it's going to be after 10 o'clock. And I'm like, I'm not going to Kroger at 10 o'clock just to get distilled water, especially when I still have to go to work tomorrow. So, and while I was doing that, my wife and my kids were going with one of my wife's friends down to Buc-ee's down in Richmond, the new Buc-ee's location.
Oh, okay.
So they said it is absolutely overwhelming. It is huge. And they're opening one up in Oak Grove.
Yep.
So Buc-ee's apparently is the new, it's almost like a Walmart, apparently. I mean, it's like a Walmart truck stop, because they said it's just rows and rows and rows of gas pumps. I'm like, well, that's not a bad thing.
No.
But they brought back some beef jerky, because Jamie from True Crime Cast and Bless Their Hearts, I actually hit him up because they actually live close to Richmond. They live in Berea, which is right there in the same county. It's just south of Richmond.
Yeah.
I think, hey, they're going to Bucky's because they've actually talked about Bucky's on their show.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, "Oh, check out the beef jerky. Check out the what they call them, the beaver nuggets, which you think they'd be like some kind of chicken nuggets. No, they're like some kind of not popcorn, but something kind of close to it.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually really, it's kind of sweet. I'm not gonna lie, it did wonders for my diabetes, but um, but it tastes really good. They just had all sorts of other stuff. My son got a hat. That's what he wants, but it said it was actually kind of cool. So whenever we drive, actually probably coming back from Florida, because when we go to Florida, we're going to be going through North Carolina, which means we won't be going by Richmond.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but coming back, we'll definitely stop there so I can check it out. And so, uh, but yeah, so coming close to Oak Grove, so a lot closer to you,
Yeah. Yeah.
Bucky's. But let's go ahead and get on the topic at hand, and that is there a stereotype, or should there be a particular wrestler body type? I mean, that's about the best way. I'll figure out a good title for the show that'll
Right.
kind of cover it. But why don't you go ahead and kind of tell what drove us to talk about this?
Well, I was on Twitter the other day, and I was seeing a bunch of stuff about Eddie Kingston. So I was reading those tweets, and he had a match on Rampage this past Friday. Anybody that's watched Eddie Kingston wrestle knows he wears a singlet and then he wears pants, and but usually during the match he drops the straps. Well, Eddie Kingston's got he's got a belly. Dude's probably 40 years old. He's got a belly. Everybody, I mean, Twitter just erupted talking about how he didn't look like a real athlete and he just looked like, an old guy out there play fighting and just all kinds of stuff. And it's like, have you not seen him? This is not new. This is what Eddie Kingston's always looked like. He's been doing this for 20 years. He is like one of the toughest and realest people in pro wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand. Who cares if he's got a belly? I still don't want to get in the ring with him and have him hit me in the face with that spinning back fist.
Exactly.
I don't want any of that. I don't want any of that half and half suplex that he does, dropping people on their head. The guy could beat you. All these people talking about his physique and all that stuff would not dare step to him and say it to his face.
Nope.
And that's the bad thing about wrestling Twitter. For as much as a great community that it is, I've met a lot of people through Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
I get like follows and stuff all the time from different wrestling fans. But at the same time, it can be extremely toxic when it comes to the aesthetics, because I think people have been, and I put the blame on, not solely on WWE, because we did have guys. You had your Hogans, you had your Lex Lugers, you had your Road Warriors, you had the guys that were, as Vince McMahon would say, aesthetically pleasing. You had the big muscle-bound dudes that would flex and muscles would pop everywhere, and you had your Scott Steiners, his physique and everything. But it's like, to me, we'll take Lex Luger as an example. Was Lex Luger entertaining? Yes. The torture rack. I always loved seeing him put the torture rack on people, especially people, big guys like Big Show and, bigger guys. But Luger was not great in the ring.
No, he wasn't.
He was a body guy. He wrestled. Lex Luger was the NWA's version of Hulk Hogan. Hogan was not good in the ring either in the States. Now in Japan he was, because he had to be, because they weren't going to have that.
No, they weren't.
You go to Japan with punches, eye rakes, body slams, and a leg drop. No, they're just going to beat the crap out of you and send you home.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as being in the States, you had your Hogans, who great physique, ring work wasn't wasn't up to par, personally, in my opinion. Luger was in that same category. Honestly, the Road Warriors are in that same category. The reason the Road Warriors were so awesome is because it was just smash mouth. They just hit the ring and they just guzzled their opponents and just smothered them and beat the crap out of them.
Didn't even wait for the bell to ring.
Didn't even.
They
didn't wait
slid
for
in the ring and went right, boom.
I mean, by the time they hit the Doomsday device, Iron Man hadn't even stopped playing yet.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes they were headed to the locker room and the song was still playing. But I mean, they were big muscle guys. They were cut, especially for the 80s. But you look at their matches, then you look at Dusty's matches. Dusty's going 60 minutes with Ric Flair, who had the best cardio in pro wrestling at the time. Dusty is 300 pounds, looks like a truck driver, and is going 60 minutes move for move with Flair. You know, you got Luger, you got the Road Warriors, you got Hogan, you got guys like that. They're not going 60 minutes. They're not going 30 minutes. They're blown up. Dusty never got blown up. And he's the one you would look at and be like, well, if anybody's going to get blown up in this match, it's going to be Dusty.
It's going to be the fat. It's going to be the fat guy.
Yeah, it's going to be the fat truck driver over there.
Yeah,
you know, but Dusty never got blown up. Dusty was a much better athlete than anybody ever gave him credit for. Was he a heavyset guy? Absolutely. Makes absolutely no difference. It's like Kevin Owens. Jim Cornette always had a problem with Kevin Owens' weight when Jim Cornette was in charge of Ring of Honor. And he was always like, you know, we're on TV and we got a, weekly television program. You got to lose weight. You got to look like this and blah, 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 blah. And Kevin Owens is like, no. He's like, my work in the ring is what people, is what people have always gravitated to. I look like an average person that pays a ticket to come see me. He's like, why am I going to change that? People can relate to me. They can't relate to me if I go in the gym and lose 100 pounds and then add 50 pounds of muscle and come out and,
put on so much muscle that you've literally stiffened yourself to where you can't.
I mean, you look at Scott Steiner, amazing physique. I mean, just so amazing. It was freaky, especially that left bicep. But
yeah, it was. It looked like a tennis ball was just sitting there, like he had inflated into his skin.
The more muscle he added, yes, his physique looked great, but it slowed him down. He looked like, because you look at the Scott Steiner from the 90s, from the late 80s, early 90s, when him and Rick were tagging. I mean, he's throwing top rope Hurricane Ranas, top rope Frankensteiners.
Yeah.
He's doing all these creative moves. I mean, at the time, he was probably 230 pounds and he's moving around the ring like a cruiserweight. I'm not saying every big guy should do that or be able to do that, but you look at that Scott Steiner and then you look at Big Papa Pump's Scott Steiner, especially the Scott Steiner that showed up in WWE once he sat out his contract. He was so big, he couldn't move.
Yep.
And he could throw the occasional suplex, the forearms, and the Steiner recliner. That's what you got with Scott Steiner then, with Big Papa Pump Scott Steiner.
And this was a man who was a collegiate wrestler at the University of Michigan.
Yep.
And so, I mean, it's not like
collegiate All-American.
Yes.
I mean, he was him and Rick both were All-Americans in wrestling, in amateur wrestling at the University of Michigan.
So it's not like he didn't know how to do actual wrestling moves.
Exactly.
And he wanted to have that look. And that's the thing. I mean, I will say, and I'm not going to defend anybody who's body shaming anybody. I think your look should honestly depend on your character that you're playing. Yeah. Now, I mean, if you're playing a guy, who's bodybuilding muscle man, hey, go for it.
Yeah. But if you're playing like an everyday guy, then, because like I've always said, like, I can relate to a Kevin Owens. I can relate to a Keith Lee. I can relate to an Eddie Kingston. which makes me gravitate more towards those wrestlers because it's like, hey, he looks like an average guy that you'd see walking down the street. I'm not seeing guys that are looking like Batista. I'm not seeing guys that look like John Cena. I can't relate to those guys. I mean, bravo for them for putting in the time to build that physique and everything, and that's for them, and that's great. Everybody should have, you know, that choice. You want to be a muscle guy, go right ahead. I have no issue with that. I'm just saying fans should not expect every big guy to be just a mound of muscle. Like, you look at Keith Lee. Keith Lee has a barrel chest. He's got a belly. He's 350. He's also one of the strongest dudes you'll ever see wrestle.
Mm-hmm.
He's one of the most athletic big men you'll ever see wrestle. He did a corkscrew plancha last night on Rampage over the top rope.
Somebody that big has no business doing that, but he can.
And the thing is, people, and on the same coin, they're like, well, he needs to get in better shape, but then he's not doing the high flying moves that he used to. He's 37 years old. He's probably learning, I've got to tone that down to prolong my career. Mm-hmm. So, but for me, I'm fine with that because when he does pull out those high flying moves, it makes it even more impressive because he doesn't do them all the time. If you do them all the time, it's just like, okay.
And, you know, even Vince McMahon, who, you know, he tried to basically set that precedent where he wants muscles. He wants everybody to look like a Luger, like a Hogan, you know, or later on, of course, like the Road Warriors or like a Batista. Mm-hmm. But if you go through all the WrestleManias, which is his flagship,
that's
that's it. That is the
that's what he built. You know, he built the company on WrestleMania.
Yep. First WrestleMania, Hogan, Mr. T, which Mr. T was known as having muscles, but you put Mr. T up against any of the wrestlers, Mr. T looks pretty small.
Yeah.
Against Paul Orndorff, which Paul Orndorff, he was pretty, and Roddy Piper.
With Bob Orton.
With Bob Orton. Piper and Orton and Mr. T were not known as like body guys. Piper later on, I mean, he did kind of get a little bit of definition, but I think that was also when he was doing movies at the same time.
That was like after WrestleMania 3. You could tell at WrestleMania 3 he was a little more cut.
Yeah.
But I think that's because he was about to leave and go to Hollywood and do some movies. So he was getting in the shape for that. Because action movie shape is completely different than sports shape.
Yes.
So,
you know, WrestleMania 2, of course, Hogan was in the main event of, like, he was involved somehow in the main event of, like, you know, like the first 9 WrestleManias.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was involved in some way, you know, but WrestleMania 2, Hogan, King Kong Bundy. King Kong Bundy was not known as a muscle guy. King Kong Bundy, he was a fat guy.
Yeah, you had King Kong Bundy. You had Big John Studd. You had Andre the Giant. None of these dudes were big muscle guys. I mean, they were big men, but they weren't looking like superstar Billy Graham.
No.
You know, they looked like they were carved out of stone. They were just big, massive men who were going to beat the crap out of it.
Yeah. And I mean, you didn't look at King Kong Bundy and say, I could take him. No.
Yeah. I mean, you didn't look at Tito Santana and say, I could take him, or Greg the Hammer Valentine.
Yeah. I mean, and there's 2 other guys. You know, Greg Valentine, I mean, he just looks like he just kind of shows up, does his thing, you know, wins, breaks somebody's leg, and leaves.
And then goes home.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay. And like, you look at Ric Flair. Flair was in good shape.
Yeah.
But Flair was never, you know, Flair wasn't Lex Luger cut.
No.
He wasn't Sting cut like Sting's early days. He wasn't Sting cut. He wasn't Road Warriors cut. But he looked in shape.
Yeah. And Flair, and I know you've read at least his first book.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize this, but it kind of made sense because I remember him always doing this. His matches, he was always reaching down and kind of pulling up his trunks a little bit. And I thought it was just kind of a, you know, every athlete has like their rituals to kind of their habits. And I thought it was just something that he did, kind of focus on the match. No, he was always self-conscious of his belly.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so he always,
that's why he was always
pulling it
him
up.
up and making sure his stomach was covered. Yeah.
And I mean, I know it sounds bad. You don't hear about guys doing that,
No.
but it was
No.
something that it bothered him.
Yeah.
Ric Flair, arguably the greatest wrestler in the world.
Yeah.
And he's worried about a little bit of a pooch belly sticking out. It's like, dude, nobody cares.
No, it's like I never watched a Ric Flair match because like, oh man, Ric Flair's got a great physique. No, I watched it because he was having 60-minute classics with Dusty Rhodes and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat and Barry Windham and guys like that. It's like you look at the Horsemen, all of them were in shape, but none of them were carved out of stone.
Not the original four.
Not the original four.
Luger, it's hard for me to even consider Luger a horseman because he, but of course Luger rotated out. Barry Windham came in. Barry Windham was better. Barry Windham was not a physique guy.
No,
they said Barry Windham couldn't even tell you what the inside of a gym looked like. They said he was just naturally strong, naturally gifted.
He was just like Arn Anderson has said. Barry Windham was the most naturally gifted wrestler that he'd ever seen. He's like, he just walked in the door and was good.
Yeah. And the later horsemen, Benoit, actually was, he was built pretty good.
Yeah.
Malenko, I'd never call Malenko a body guy.
No, he just looked like an average guy. I mean, he knew 1,000 ways to hurt you.
Yeah, he did. I always loved watching his matches because he was always going to pull out something. I'm like, man, and somebody needs to be using the Texas Cloverleaf as a finishing move. I'm gonna tell you all that right now.
Sheamus has used it a time or two, but I've seen him do it, but it didn't look nearly as smooth as Dean Malenko's.
And not only that, but I'm pretty sure they said, Sheamus, you're Irish, do something Irish.
Yeah, I can't think because everything they did was like, with Sheamus was like the Irish Cross or, white noise or, different things. It's like, come on, can we not, please?
The ginger man or something. I don't know.
Yeah. But people they've been body shaming Eddie Kingston. He's the most recent one. But it's not just that. It's not just because they think that he looks a little overweight or doesn't look like an athlete. Booker T himself was body shaming Adam Cole a few weeks ago, got called out about it on Twitter, and then had to retract his statement and say that he wasn't body shaming him. He was saying that it would probably help his career if he added some more muscle and got a little bigger. There's nothing wrong with Adam Cole's career. He's been a world champion everywhere he's gone. The only reason he's not on TV right now is because he's got a concussion.
Speaking of Booker T, this is kind of a if I don't tell you now, I'll totally forget. I'm going to send you a text right now. It was like a screenshot, and I took a screenshot, from the Apple Podcast because I don't have this one because I know you use Google or no Amazon.
Amazon, yeah.
Yep. The podcast that I sent you the other day, this one is kind of linked to it in a way. It's almost like they're almost the same podcast. I'm still having trouble figuring it out. But they had an episode. They were is Austin Theory the right person for Money in the Bank? Roman's reign bad for WWE, and I'm like, well, if Dwayne and I want to talk about that, we can't now because it sounds like perfect timing for us, but but I mean, it was still a really good podcast. But one of the guys on there, he was actually talking about Booker T, and this guy apparently is not a fan of Booker T. And so, I just sent you the screenshot so you can go check it out. Still a really good podcast. And, so I've been running across some good ones here lately that, recommended probably by Ted the Hillbilly Hill, who, who's another, we're kind of a unofficial partner in crime here because, we're trying to set up our social media empire.
Get that empire going. Yeah.
And Ted's already got, his own empire going. And so we're kind of, following his lead because I mean he's award winning, critically acclaimed,
Yeah.
#1 in Antarctica and on MySpace. I mean, and if you don't think he is, prove he's not. But yeah, Ted. I mean, he has been such a good supporter of our show. He always gives us shout out. So I try to give him shout outs as well. And he also gives shout outs to other podcasts. And actually, these guys, he actually had them on his podcast here recently.
Yeah.
And he's been on ours. We've been on his. So just a great another great podcast. Go check it out. So just want to kind of get that plug in the middle of the show. So yeah, Ted.
Yeah.
When you hear it, tweet it, let us know. We appreciate you, dude.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But with it kind of surprises me. Well, yeah, it does kind of surprise me. Booker T, kind of. I would expect Booker T to be better than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of his takes here lately, I've been kind of disappointed in. I mean, I don't have to, he doesn't have to agree with every single thing in wrestling, but it's like,
right.
It's going beyond that to where like he was on his podcast talking about Adam Cole, basically saying how he was too small and we got to get some muscle on that kid and all this stuff. And it's like, here's how bad it got, because Twitter fans had jumped on that bandwagon and we're agreeing with Booker T. Eddie Kingston shut that down real quick. He got on Twitter and was like, for everybody that's trying to body shame Adam Cole, none of you could lace his boots. Not a single person that has typed a single tweet on this app could spend 5 minutes in the ring with Adam Cole. He would beat every single one of you with no problem. He's like, Adam Cole is one of the absolute best wrestlers, best professional wrestlers in the world. There's nothing wrong with his physique. There's nothing wrong with his in-ring work. Leave the guy alone and let him live his life.
You know who else doesn't have a great physique? Bryan Danielson.
Exactly. And I mean, Bryan Danielson is the best wrestler on the planet, in my opinion.
Right.
Another person who doesn't have a great physique, Zack Sabre Jr. He is right up there with Bryan Danielson as one of the greatest professional wrestlers on this planet. And he has a physique similar to Adam Cole. And it's like, do y'all not have anything better to do than to try to tear somebody down because they're doing something you can't do, or doing something you wanted to do and hadn't had the opportunity, or you're just jealous? Or I don't get it. From a fan standpoint, I do not get the body shaming. And it's not just the men, and the men have been the recent victims, but women have been dealing with this, seems like, since the beginning in pro wrestling.
Yeah.
Body shame. And you look at like just recent examples. Nia Jax, people would body shame, Twitter fans would body shame Nia Jax. WWE body shamed Nia Jax. That's why they had her wear that padded suit. That suit was padded.
Right. I did know that.
Yeah. And it's like, just let her go out and do her thing. She is a beautiful woman. There's nothing wrong with her. It's like, why not everybody's going to be a Trish Stratus or Charlotte Flair or an Alexa Bliss,
Well, I don't know about Trish Stratus, but Charlotte Flair, she has admittedly, had work done.
Yeah.
Because she actually she had a very dangerous situation because she had one of her implants start leaking.
Yep.
Alexa Bliss, I believe, has also had some work done.
Yep.
I don't know about Trish, like I said.
Trish had her implants taken out once she retired.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would think
she had implants in, and then once she retired, she took them out.
I would think it would be dangerous to have the implants in while you're doing something that's pretty athletic.
Yeah.
I know China was basically forced to get plastic surgery to look more feminine.
Yeah.
And that's why if you look at when she first came into the WWF, the way her jaw looks, and then you look at her before she left, and the way it looked then, it was totally different.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and she looked like two different people if you compare her debut to her exit. And she looked like two different people. And that's just another example. It's like they couldn't have let her just be herself
Mm-hmm.
and just go with that. It's like, oh no, you've got to fit in, and you've got to be, you've got to look more quote unquote feminine. And it's like,
Let's
why?
work with what the people have rather than trying to force something on them.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know,
so Selena Deeb, she's currently wrestles in AEW. She was in WWE for a while. She was part of the Straight Edge Society. She was the girl that was in there that got her CM Punk picked out of the audience, got her
yeah.
head shaved. She had implants in. She cut a promo on AEW a couple months back talking about how women aren't getting, women still don't get the respect they deserve in pro wrestling. And she's like, I had to have things done to my body to satisfy. She said to satisfy an old pervert. She got breast implants because that's what that WWE wanted her to do to look more attractive.
Let's say which old pervert?
She didn't specify which old pervert, but
Because,
I mean, we know 2 or 3 off the top of our head. So
I mean, I can probably safely say it was not Pat Patterson.
yeah, it was not Pat,
Right.
but
but the rest of them,
yeah.
I mean,
And well, like they did it to Mickey James when she was feuding with Lay Cool, and they had the whole Piggy James thing. That whole thing was punishment because Vince McMahon thought that Mickey James had gained weight and didn't look as attractive as she should have. There was absolutely nothing wrong with Mickey James.
how were her in-ring skills? I mean, that's what
Exactly. That's the thing. It's like we all know WWE doesn't care about in-ring skills. They care about the aesthetic. But wrestling fans, you would think that they would care more about the in-ring skills and not the aesthetic, because like we've said, you can look like $1 million and then not know how to run the ropes.
who was that Yutz that was supposed to team with the Undertaker at that WrestleMania, and they ended up pulling him off of it?
Nathan Jones, who
Yeah.
looked like $1 million,
Yeah.
had a great story, a great look. Couldn't even run the ropes right.
Nope. I mean, and you look at some of the champions, well, the classic champions. I don't want to talk about, during the time they were hot potato and, the belt around. Bob Backlund was never a body guy.
Nope.
Not Bruno Sammartino. Now, Bruno Sammartino, I mean, he was strong.
I mean, he was a big guy, but he was barrel chest, and he had, he had a stomach. You could tell it was solid, but he was just a big barrel looking guy. And
Pedro Morales. Same thing. Not as big as Bruno, but Pedro, I mean, he wasn't a slouch. And another great Pedro, he was the first Triple Crown champion.
Yeah. Iron Sheik,
yeah. And Iron Sheik was known for being a Olympic level athlete.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But I wouldn't look at him and say, oh yeah, he's got the physique. I mean, that's the prototype of a wrestler. Now, but we do say Bobby Lashley. You look at professional wrestler, you would see a picture of Bobby Lashley.
Yeah. But the thing is, Bobby Lashley is more than just a physique.
Right.
The problem with a lot of these guys is they get the physique and it sacrifices the in-ring work.
Yep.
Bobby Lashley is an exception to where he has an amazing physique, but the guy can still go.
Yep. And I think Bobby Lashley would have that physique if he wasn't a wrestler.
Oh yeah. I think he's a gym rat, and I think he just likes working out. And a lot of people do, and there's nothing wrong with that.
That is working with what you have.
Exactly. Sometimes I wish I had the motivation to go to the gym and work out, but I don't. So I'm not going to waste the money on a membership. So
I mean, I used to.
I mean, I used to have a gym membership. I used to go all the time, and then life kind of catches up to you, and it's like,
life catches up, and you want to take a break for a little bit. I did to let my body heal up after I retired, and then later on I discovered what was causing all the pain is I have arthritis, so I'm actually more limited now than
Yeah.
what I used to be. Now I do need to lose weight. I mean, that's for my own health. I mean, that's not because I'm trying to look a certain way. For my own health, I do need to lose weight. Chris Jericho, I don't know if you have actually heard his podcast recently. He talked about when he was on tour with Fozzy over in Europe, and all of a sudden they had to cancel some dates, and nobody was really saying why, and they said it was from health reasons. He had a pulmonary embolism.
I did see that. I saw a thing on YouTube. They had a little clip of
Yep.
he was talking about that. Yeah, he almost died.
Yeah, he almost died, and he actually talked about it on not his. It was like 3 episodes ago. One of them he had Jesse Ventura on there, and I was like, okay, yes, I do realize Jesse Ventura was a politician, but man, he was getting like really into it. But then he eventually started talking about wrestling. But when he was talking about that, he said that his doctors actually told him, because he has a part of his thing was genetics, so they told him you do need to lose weight. Jericho had to lose weight for health reasons,
Right.
because he didn't, and he actually there's some medication he has to take. He has to take it almost every day, but he has to not take it like so many hours before he has a match. I'd have to listen to it again to get the full gist, but he's going to be on some kind of medication the rest of his life.
Right.
But he had to lose weight for health reasons.
Right.
Jericho, when he was, because we all noticed, oh, okay, Jericho's gained some weight. Guess what? The dude's 50.
Exactly.
He looks normal.
Yeah, I noticed that, and I never thought anything of it. It's like it's a 50-year-old man. It's like, of course he's going to gain some weight. I mean,
he's still doing the line salt. He's still doing the drop kicks, including that drop kick he does. He jumps up second rope, comes back and drop kicks the guy off the corner. He's still, he didn't really lose a step.
No.
And, so I didn't really see it affect him. But he did it for his own health. He didn't do it because Tony Khan told him to. And I have not heard anything about Tony Khan telling anybody you need to lose weight. Now, if they're portraying like a bodybuilder, then all of a sudden they start not looking like a bodybuilder. Okay, we need to address this. Either we're going to change your character or you're going to have to go do something, but that's different. That's like actors, because wrestlers it's a form of acting. It's just very, very athletic. And yes, and you can still get hurt. Don't ever say fake.
Yeah, but never say fake.
Never say fake.
No.
But actors have to look a certain way for some of the roles they're playing. You look at Ethan Suplee, kind of example. He's played so many different roles in so many different movies. He's a very, very versatile actor. I think he's very underrated, because I don't think I've ever seen him as a lead in anything, but he's always a great supporting character. He's always been kind of a big heavyset guy. Because he was Earl's brother, Randy, and My Name is Earl.
Yeah.
And he was in Wolf of Wall Street. See, I'm gonna have to bring up a reference to it every show now. But he was a minor supporting character, but he was still in it. And he was kind of heavy-ish, kind of sloppy looking, but that was the character he was playing.
Right.
In the past couple of years, somebody got pictures of him in a gym.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
Cut, and it was like, wow.
Yeah, he's looking like Braun Strowman.
Yeah, he was. He really was, because he had the beard and everything. I'm like, I would not have recognized him.
I didn't realize it was him until like I was reading about it, and people, they were reporting that it was him, and it was like, no way. He was. If you ever saw the movie Blow, he was Tuna in Blow.
I've seen it. It has been a very long time.
Yeah, but he was in that movie, and he was the heavyset friend. He always wore like the floral shirts and things, and
okay.
But he was a bigger guy in that. He was in
Mallrats. 2 movies came over at the same time. Mallrats, which is absolutely hilarious, good Kevin Smith movie. American History X.
Yes, that's the one I was going to say.
Yes,
he was in American History X.
Dude, like somebody would look at him and he'd say, "Hey, am I fat?" And they'd say, "Dude, I know five fat people, and you're four of them."
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
he was huge in that,
Yeah,
and not in a good way. In fact, his
yeah,
character was not in a good way.
right. Yeah,
By the way, I will say, as far as a movie goes, it's a good movie. However, it is a very you have to be careful about the message.
yeah. It's an excellent movie. It's just
It'll it
if you're triggered easily, then beware.
yeah. I know we're kind of off the subject. A friend of mine, when I was stationed up at Wright Patterson, he watched the movie, black dude,
Hmm.
and he said when he was watching, he was standing up in his living room. He was getting ready to punch his TV. So I mean, so it'll like you said, if you get triggered easily, that's definitely not a movie you never. Well, don't stop at one part. Keep
Yeah,
watching it to see
yeah.
the
Keep
entire,
watching.
to see
Yeah,
the ending. You
yeah.
know, um, but anyway, but yeah, but we're talking about Ethan Suplee because I mean, he was like four fat people all rolled into
Hmm.
one in that movie. But now, I mean, he is,
Yeah,
he's got muscle. He looks like Braun Strowman because he's doing it for roles
he's
in movies.
yeah he's doing it for roles. And like you said, when you look at somebody like Christian Bale, who lost 100 pounds to play a character in The Machinist, which is an excellent movie also, but then gained 60 pounds of muscle because his
Hmm.
next movie was Batman Begins.
Yep. And I heard something on a different podcast. I think it was the Nate Land. It's a new podcast I've been listening to. It's a non-wrestling one, but they were like, I think they were talking about Tom Cruise. Oh no, you know what? I think it was Bless Their Hearts. They were talking about Tom Cruise and how he always looks like in pretty good shape. They
Hmm.
said, well, but his job is to,
His
his
job's
movies.
to look, yeah,
Yeah. And so when he's not acting, he's all he's doing is working out. So I mean, yeah. So I mean, yeah, they have the time to do it, but at the same time, they they're putting forth the effort themselves. I can't put a gun to their head and say, go lift weights.
yeah.
They're doing it on their own.
Well, it's like The Rock. I follow him on Instagram. He's always working out. If he's got free
Mhm.
time and he's not with his family or he's not working, he's working out. But he likes to work out.
Yep.
That's his, he has his own gym. He goes there. He a lot of times, like at night, that's kind of like his, you know,
That his sanctuary is right
exactly.
there. Yep.
But he enjoys working out. It's like it's for him because he was getting movie roles before, you know, before this version of The Rock,
Yeah.
you know. So it's not like he's changing his look to get movie roles. He's been getting movie roles. But for wrestlers, it's like we take a Kevin Owens. He is his original gimmick when he came into NXT was he was like a prize fighter. I don't care about anything that's going on here. I just want to make a better living for my family. So
Hmm.
if beating people up is what I got to do it, then that's what I'm going to do. Kevin Owens looks like an everyday guy. Like I said, I can relate to Kevin Owens. I can relate to a lot of these guys, and for me, that draws me in. And I think a lot of fans, because I've seen responses on Twitter to where there's a guy that I retweeted something he said earlier, and it was basically to paraphrase. He was like, "I watch wrestling for the in-ring work.
Yes.
You can look, you can look amazing, but if you don't perform in the ring, I'm not interested in it." And that's basically how I am. It's like, bravo if you have $1 million body, but if you get in the ring and you can't do anything, I'm immediately going to be like, well, that guy can't wrestle. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me what they look like. It matters to me how they perform in the ring. You look at FTR; they look like two typical guys.
Yeah.
Best tag team in the world.
They look like two guys you would see sitting there at a bar like on a Thursday night.
Yeah. Same with the Briscoes.
Yeah.
One of the best tag teams in the world.
Yep.
It's like that bell rings and they get to work and they put
Yeah.
on amazing matches. That's what I want to see. That's why I watch pro wrestling. I don't watch it for the spectacle. I watch it for the wrestling.
exactly. I mean, and I don't want to see every single wrestler looking and acting and wrestling the same
Exactly.
because, you know, last week SmackDown, and I was texting you during the show.
Hmm.
They had what 5 matches,
Yeah.
and I think there was a grand total of 25 minutes of actual
Of
wrestling.
wrestling. Yep.
But
Everything else was a skit or a backstage interview or
yeah,
in-ring interview or,
you know,
anything but wrestling.
anything but wrestling. The main event they changed at the last minute.
Yep.
Um, they did not. I'm going to guess they did not have the dark match afterwards, which is always a bonus for fans attending live.
Yeah.
They couldn't because Drew McIntyre
Cut
cut
the
the rope.
ropes. Yeah.
You know, so unless they replaced the rope just to have that match, I mean, which is
Yeah.
possible because it for the ring crews, I mean, the really good ones, they know how to fix that
Yeah.
quickly, because they've had ropes actually legitimately break
Yeah.
during matches, so they
Yeah.
know how to get them up. They always have a spare just in case. But I seriously doubt they did that.
No,
You know,
I
so
think that was just the end of it, and the audience just didn't get that extra match. They just had to go home.
right, and so we focus on the in ring stuff. I could name some other wrestlers who I'm not going to say that their skills were the greatest, but their character was great, and you believed them. Kamala, the Ugandan giant, for one.
Hmm.
You know, Kamala was definitely not a muscle guy. Um, when he walked into Jerry Lawler's office, Jerry Lawler was the one who came up with the idea, and he said, "Did anybody see you walk in here? You know, they didn't. Okay, good. We are going to a brand new character for you."
Hmm.
And they had him film these vignettes. You know, it's supposed to be in the jungle. Really, it was like in Jerry Jarrett's backyard. You know, so but oh, you know, this killer, this giant, you know, coming out of the jungles of Uganda, even though he was actually, his name was Jim Harris. He was a truck driver
Yeah.
in Mississippi.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you ever heard the interviews with him. Well, it sounded like just an absolute sweetheart of a guy.
Yeah.
But
Oh yeah.
I mean, um, but if you were to say, oh, the Ugandan giant, would you expect somebody to walk out where they've been working out all the time? Or do you expect somebody who has been doing whatever to survive and he's a little bigger, got a little bit of a
Yeah.
belly? I would expect him to look like the way Kamal looked. And
Yeah.
that character, think about how long that character lasted.
Hmm.
You know, not a muscle guy, you know, Abdullah the Butcher. The dude had that character for 50 years.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think Abdullah has any muscle on him. I mean, and it works. Now,
Look at
and
Mick
I'm
Foley.
Mick Foley, exactly. Mick Foley said, "I'm proud to say that I can bench the same amount of weight that I did when I was in high school," which is, which was not a lot.
Yeah.
And but Mick Foley, I mean, he said, "You know what? I know I need to work with what I got, and need to not try to force myself to be something that I'm not. Work with
Exactly.
work with the tools you have."
Well, Big Van Vader,
Yes,
450 pounds,
with doing a moonsault.
doing moonsaults, doing top rope shoulder tackles. I
Yeah,
mean, and everything he did was believable.
yeah, and a powerful guy.
Yeah.
I mean, he was strong. He was powerful. I mean, he was a former, what was a lineman for the Rams.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And, and we were actually talking before we started recording about they say, okay, well, they got to look like athletes, got to have muscle. NFL linemen are not known for having six packs.
No, but they
You
got
know,
muscle.
I mean, they do have muscle. I mean, it's
Yeah.
in under, like 3 layers of fat, but they're linemen. You expect them to be big because they're trying to keep the defenders or they're trying to push people out of the way. So the quarterback, the running back, wide receiver, they're blocking. You expect them to be bigger, not
Yeah.
necessarily with muscle, just mass. You're not going to walk up to one of them and say, "Hey, you, the big 6'4", 340-pound guy, you're not athletic."
Yeah. Who
Because
can run the 40 in 4.5 seconds?
yeah, I mean, you're not going to say they're not athletic. So anybody that says these wrestlers, who
Yeah.
especially like Eddie Kingston, who's been doing it for, like you said, 20 plus years,
Yep.
you cannot do it for that long without being athletic.
Exactly.
You know,
He's done it 20 plus years all over the world.
yeah. And I'll even throw some examples. And I haven't even talked about the NWF show that I went to this past weekend, in Covington. I can tell you an example. Pompano Joe. He's been on the indie scene, mostly in NWF, for about 20 years. And he's not a muscle guy. You're not going to have anybody in there say that he can't wrestle. Pompano Joe.
No, he's got like an Adam Cole physique.
Yeah.
That's kind of what his physique reminds me of. But I've seen the clips on Bustin' Loose, and the guy can wrestle.
Oh yeah. I mean, he can go. In fact, he threw out the open challenge for the Summer Sizzler. He said, I've wrestled everybody in the Northern Wrestling Federation. He said, so I need new competition. So start tagging them, tell them to come challenge. I'm putting an open challenge out for anybody for the Summer Sizzler August 20th.
I saw that he put the open challenge out.
Yep. So some people like Trey and Courtney, they've actually already started tagging Brian Pillman Jr. because I mean he's local. And I'm thinking, I even told Pompano Joe himself, was like, you know what? I said, I think I'll tag Buff. I said, I still have Buff's phone number.
Yeah.
Not that Buff would necessarily do it, but but I mean that's a possibility. We start tagging everybody, having them come. Speaking of Trey, his birthday I think was yesterday. Yesterday, the day before. So I got to see him and Courtney at the show in Covington.
That's cool.
Yep, Justin wasn't able to make it. He was calling a game because this is actually something now that he's actually posted on Facebook. I can go ahead and kind of tell what's going on with him. Justin's show was picked up by ESPN.
That's awesome.
He is going to be calling stuff now for ESPN. Yeah, I mean that's I don't even think awesome. I mean that may actually kind of undercut what he's he's doing some good stuff. I mean and you're right. I mean it is awesome. I mean I can't think of any words that are better than awesome, but it's actually because he told me about it about a month ago, I think, because I think the only person I told was you. And because he asked me, he's like, hey, don't let this really get out. And I knew you wouldn't say it to anybody, because I mean, we're just happy. We are happy for our friend, cause I mean, Justin, he's been on our show. We've been on his show. And, but yeah, he actually couldn't make it Saturday because he was calling a game, and this is actually something that he could just about make it a career. I mean, because he told me what the payouts are, and I was like, you know what? I said, do you realize you're being making this amount of money? He's like, he said, I never even looked at it like that. I'm like, yeah, and I mean, it's money that you can live off of. You're not living like expensive, but you're living. I mean, you're comfortable. You're very comfortable. So I'm just ecstatic for him.
That's awesome. That's perfect example of good things happen when you put in the work.
Yep, and he definitely puts in the work. So, in fact, his show is if for anybody who actually listens to the show or watches the show, you haven't seen him on the air. There's still some logistical stuff that he's working out with ESPN, but he will be back on. I think he said Monday from 7 to 9. So his show is now from like 7 o'clock in the morning to 9 in the morning. So, but I mean, he already sounds like a professional broadcaster.
Yeah.
Just the way he does things. And I'm like, man, Justin, I mean, he not meaning to, but he forced us to kind of step up our game.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm not saying that in a bad way at all. I'm like, hey, Dwaylen, and they're on video.
Yeah.
We maybe we should finally
try that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we're both ugly, but like you said, there's just too much face.
Yeah.
But let's go for it.
That's why the beard hides all the face.
Because doing that kind of forces you to be cognizant about some things. The way he had an intro video. He actually made, for those of you who watch on YouTube, the intro video that you see at the beginning was actually created by Justin.
Yep.
And I didn't even ask him to do it. He just said, hey, I made this for you and Dwaylen. And I was like, what? And he sent it to me. I mean, I was like, I was like, man, now I need to come up with a video. And I mean, and I really like the video he did. But I would like to, just a different, because every once in a while you do need to change things up.
Yeah, you got to freshen it up every now and then.
You have to freshen it up. I mean, but he does great work with that. And TNC Sports Talk, the throw-in is the one that's been picked up by ESPN. So yeah, if you see him, you have to definitely tell him congratulations. Yeah, I mean, Joy and I are both just over the moon for him.
Oh yeah.
That's the best way to describe it. So, but anyway, and I think Justin would agree with us about the body shaming.
Oh yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um, but and I still think it is a list of wrestlers who don't have a great physique, but you would say, yeah, they're still one of the best, at least a character. You would say, yeah, they are Hall of Fame worthy because of what they did, their contributions in the ring. And if they were to try to all of a sudden get super muscular, I think it would take away from what they did, like the
Yeah.
Kamalas, like the Abdullah the Butchers, like a Dusty Rhodes, even like a Dustin Rhodes.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
Dustin wasn't like just super cut. I mean, he was in good shape, but
right.
he was never super cut.
And but another example on the other side, somebody who had a great physique, not a lot of in-ring skills, Goldberg.
Yeah. 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 Great physique and handful of moves. And I mean, if you kept him to 4 or 5 minute matches, then you were good.
Yep.
But when he came to WWE and they were trying to get him to do 20, 25 minute matches, it exposed him. It showed he didn't have the ability to keep up. Everybody who he wrestled with carried him in WWE.
And William Regal, who got himself fired, and I still think it was unjust.
Oh yeah.
But William Regal was a hooker and a shooter, and people don't know what a hooker is in wrestling terms. As somebody, they would hook you. I mean, literally with their arms, or they would hook your arm, hook your leg, and they would hurt you.
Yeah.
They could do that, and William Regal could, and probably still could, do that.
Yeah.
And he was trying to give Goldberg a better opponent, so that way when Goldberg won, he was still putting him over. When Goldberg won, he actually beat somebody.
Right. He wasn't just beating a jobber guy that they pulled from local talent and was like, here, you got 2 minutes, you're going to eat a spear and a jackhammer.
Yeah. And so they fired William Regal over that. It's like, really? He's actually trying to.
And William Regal to this day says that he was told to go out and give Goldberg a competitive match. So that's what he did.
Yeah. He gave him a competitive match. And
I tend to believe William Regal. William Regal has always been, from anything I've ever read about him, a consummate professional.
Yes.
So I feel like he went out and did what was asked of him, and then they realized their meal ticket got exposed because an actual wrestler was in the ring with him. And they're like, oh, we got to cover this up real quick. We can't have that anymore.
And William Regal, another guy, definitely not a body guy.
Yep.
But he was legitimately tough and he could just break your foot right off.
Yeah. Another non-body guy, Mr. Perfect.
Yeah. I mean, he had his moments. I mean, yeah, he definitely looked like he was in shape.
Yeah, he was in shape, but he wasn't like just all cut up and everything. And I mean, Mr. Perfect was amazing. I loved everything about the Mr. Perfect character.
Bret Hart, not a body guy.
Yeah.
The Undertaker, not a body guy. Undertaker, tall. He's a big guy.
Kane wasn't a body guy.
Kane, not a body guy. Kevin Nash, not a body guy.
Nope.
Scott Hall, you could actually say kind of was, because
Scott Hall kind of was, but he never. But Scott Hall could wrestle. It's like he never. Some body guys, they rely on that to get them over.
Right.
And Scott Hall had the body, but he could wrestle, so it just added to his appeal.
Yeah.
Because here's a guy that's in really good shape. He's got all this charisma, he cut a promo, and then he gets in the ring and he can wrestle.
Which is the ironic thing was when him and Dan Spivey were American Starship, they were being pushed as body guys.
Yeah.
Coming out ripping the shirts off like Hogan was doing at the time. And but they didn't really talk. And so you didn't really know about the promo stuff until later when all of a sudden he's not being pushed as a body guy. Even though Scott Hall, he always was in great shape.
Yeah.
And Sean Waltman, never a body guy whatsoever.
CM Punk. Never a body
Yeah,
guy.
in
Even,
shape.
I mean, Triple H even like when they were feuding, going back and forth, and he called him skinny fat, which is a bodybuilding term for a
Yeah,
guy that's you're in shape, but you're not ripped.
right. And man, it's been a long time since I heard that term, but yeah, the skinny fat.
Yeah,
And I mean, and now I will say there are some guys who are, you can almost call them body guys. They're in very good shape and they can wrestle. Cena's one of them. I mean, we know
yeah.
about the 5 moves of doom, but Cena actually does have more than that. He just doesn't have to
Well,
show.
yeah. Cena was always one of those. Cena's wrestled some excellent matches. It
Yeah,
just depends on who he's in the ring with. Cena always stepped his game up to match who he was in the ring with. So, I mean, you stick him in the ring with a great Khali, you're not getting a 5-star classic. But you put him in the ring with Punk or
that,
Jericho or Shawn Michaels, you're getting a great match because
yeah,
he's gonna step up to match their level.
yep. And because he could.
Yeah,
And I mean, no matter how much he tries to get a great match at the Great
never gonna
Khali,
happen.
no, I mean, and nothing against the man himself, but when you're 7'6", 7'7", legit,
Mhm.
and your mobility is limited, you're not going to be able to do a lot of the
Extremely
moves.
limited. And you think they would have learned that lesson when they brought in, well, he was Giant Gonzalez in WWE, but he was Elegante in WCW.
Yeah,
He was aligned with
Yep,
Sting.
Jorge Gonzalez.
Yep. And he couldn't do anything. I mean, he could barely step over the ropes and get in the ring.
Yeah,
I mean, he hardly had any mobility at all. And then WWE was like, oh, well, we've got this huge monster we need to throw in to face the Undertaker. And then they figured out real quick, this guy can't do anything at all.
yeah. I mean, he was too tall because,
Yeah.
and
It limited what people were able to do with him. Because, I mean, the Undertaker was like almost 7 feet tall and looked like a child.
yeah, he was looking right at his chest.
Yeah. And it's like,
I
it
mean,
limits somebody that tall, it limits what you're able to do.
yep.
It limits the story that you're able to tell because nobody's believing that you're knocking this guy off his feet. So where do you go from there? If you can't knock him off his feet, how are you supposed to beat him?
And I think the way they did it I think it was SummerSlam. I think that was the last match that him and Undertaker had. And Undertaker had to come off the top rope with the clothesline, and and it wasn't like he took a big bump like everybody else. He hit him, and he kind of and then he kind of timber fell.
Yeah, yeah,
But that one was about what you would expect. That's about the only way you're going. But it was not a good match. And Jorge Gonzalez, he was brought to the States to play basketball for the Atlanta Hawks.
yep.
He's that tall, and
And
he
then they
couldn't.
figured out that he didn't have any mobility either.
Yeah,
So that didn't work out. So
because people that tall, I mean, it's just
yeah.
kind of nature of the beast. I mean, if you're that, because your legs are
Mhm.
having to carry all this weight,
Yeah.
and bone is still bone. I mean, it's only so strong.
I mean, you look at Sean Bradley, who's 7'6".
Yeah,
I mean, he couldn't make it in the NBA. His mobility just wasn't
I mean,
there.
he made it to the NBA,
He got there, but
but
it ended up being too much for him.
yeah. And then I was actually telling Alan yesterday on the Cubicle Chat podcast about seeing Sean Bradley in person
Mm-hmm.
when I was in Afghanistan, and he is the biggest human being I have ever seen, because he was not only that tall, but he had actually filled out. Because you remember how
Yeah.
he could hula hoop through a Cheerio
Oh,
skinny
yeah.
back in the day. Not anymore. I mean, dude was, I'm not saying it was muscle necessarily. He kind of fit like the mold of what we're talking about on today's show.
Yeah.
It was probably more fat than muscle, but either way, I mean, he actually looked healthier than what he did when
When
he
he was
was in.
playing, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially when he's trying to battle up against somebody like Shaq.
Yeah.
You know,
Who had like 4% body fat and was
yeah,
just all muscle
yeah,
and bone.
and unfortunately played for LSU. He should have been playing for North Carolina. That's all I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
But by the way, Shaq here lately has been my son's hero. No idea where it came from, but
It's probably social media. Shaq is just an amazing human being. I wish more people
yeah.
were like Shaquille
Oh,
O'Neal. He just does things because he's a good person.
Shaq, and yeah, we're really getting off subject now, but well, you know what? Shaq has been involved in wrestling before, so this counts.
There you go.
So Shaq he is the how did Leighton put it? And yeah, check that. It's actually true. He owns more real estate than anybody else in the world.
Yes.
Because he owns all these housing things that he's building,
Yep.
just all over the place.
Plus, there's a lot of businesses that he owns.
He owns some Papa John's.
Yep.
What's some of the other ones? I mean, so by the way, that's Dr. Shaquille O'Neal too. He also has a PhD. That's legit.
Right.
That's not an honorary. No, Shaq actually has.
Yep.
Because
he made a deal with his mom. He left LSU early because he was gonna get hurt because teams had already instituted the Hack-a-Shack and they were trying to hurt him. But he made a deal with his mom that if he came out early, he had to go back and get his degree, and he did. He kept that promise. He got a PhD.
He got his degree 3 times.
Yeah, he's just a good human being. He just really is. Just the things that he does for people. He was in a shoe store one time, and this mom was trying to find shoes for her son, and he was wearing like a 16 or a 17. I can relate because I wear a 17.
Do you?
Yeah.
Really?
My feet have gotten bigger the older I've gotten. Yeah.
That's weird. Yeah. Well, mine have gotten slightly. That's because I've gotten fatter. Mine went from 11. Seriously, mine went from 11 to like a 12 wide. Just because I'm fat. Anyway,
depending on how the shoe's made, I can wear a 16. The tennis shoes I have right now are a 17.
But then again, your scoliosis actually stunted your growth.
Mm-hmm.
You should be about as tall as your brother.
Oh yeah, I was supposed to be.
Yeah, and when you came back from your surgery, you were 3 inches taller.
Yeah.
But when I saw you 8 years ago now, by the way, in person, you and I were the same height again.
Yep.
So anyway.
But Shaq, his mom was trying to figure out how she was going to pay for these shoes. And Shaq just kind of went up to her and was like, my mom's been there. I completely understand, because like Shaq wears like a 22 triple E.
Yeah.
It's just huge. And he's like, I'm gonna do something for you. And he bought him enough shoes to get him through like several school years.
And how old was the kid?
Kid was like 15.
And at that age, especially boys, are going through shoes about every 6 months.
Shaq bought him enough to get him through the rest of his high school.
Yeah, and it's really, especially if they're athletic.
Yeah.
They're just definitely going. Yeah.
He did the same thing. A guy was putting an engagement ring on layaway for his fiance, and Shaq handed the clerk his credit card. And he's like, just put it on my credit card. And he's like, go ahead and give it to him.
Yeah, see, and that's why he's my son's here. If you were to go to my son's Snapchat, that's actually I had to look at him. I was like, what is his picture? Never mind. It's actually Shaq. Like a cartoon Shaq.
But I mean, Shaq was never like, even Shaq, and yet Shaq he's done stuff in WWE and AEW. He was never a body guy. And
WCW.
And that's right, and WCW, because he was Hogan's first match.
Yep.
Yeah.
Shaq was the company to the ring.
Yep. But Shaq was never a body guy.
No.
He was
He's naturally just powerful.
Just a huge man. He was in good shape. He always kept himself in good shape, even now that he doesn't play, but he was never just all ripped and cut up. And it's like, people act like that's the definition of a pro wrestler, is you have to look like a Bobby Lashley, and you don't.
Not everybody can look like a Bobby Lashley.
Nothing against Bobby Lashley, because Bobby Lashley is one of my favorites right now.
Yeah.
I'm just using him as an example because of the physique that he has. And
he does. He has just a phenomenal physique.
And people look at him, people look at somebody like that, and they're like, well, that's what an athlete is supposed to look like. Not Eddie Kingston over here, who looks like, he's in the bar on Thursday and somebody's going to try him and somebody's going to get beat up.
Yeah. And actually, and we're going to have to wrap it up here pretty soon, but one of the, they say a couple of the two men who Andre the Giant was afraid of, Harley Race and King Tonga, Haku, Ming, whatever.
Yeah.
Not body guys.
No, they weren't. They didn't look like Hulk Hogan. They just looked like two tough guys that beat you up.
Yeah.
You looked at him the wrong way.
I mean, and Harley Race, first of all, the man beat polio.
Yeah.
Who beats polio? I mean, seriously, but the man beat polio, even though he looked like a guy, he came right off the construction site and just walked right into the wrestling ring.
Yes. Yeah. He looked like he took his hard hat and his safety vest off and just climbed in the ring.
Yeah. Somebody challenged, he's like, all right. and just,
let me see what I can do.
And then Haku, Ming, King Tonga, all the stories that you hear about him and all the wrestlers, they all backed them up. And they're like, yeah, he really did reach inside a man's mouth and just pulled a couple of his teeth out.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, I mean, hopefully, the body shaming will stop. I mean, I can't, it probably won't, but we can just kind of.
It probably won't, but I feel like if the topic keeps being discussed and fans, not, you have your fans that are body shaming wrestlers, but then you have fans that are also giving a viewpoint of, not everybody needs to look the same. We watch the show for the in-ring work, not for the look. And then you've got wrestlers coming to other wrestlers' defense. I feel like that if that continues, that's going to help that too.
Yeah. So no idea what we have on the store for Monday because we don't know what the news cycle is going to bring. We do have some topics in mind that, but right now we kind of we research stuff, and I'm just kind of letting this know for the fans out there listening. We research stuff, and then we always have our ideas ready, and then something comes up. Now we have decided we do want to talk about a little bit more old school stuff. We're trying to get some more interviews lined up.
Yep.
Our interviews also depend on mine and Dwalen's schedules. If we know something could possibly conflict, all of a sudden we'd have to cancel a recording. We don't want to have to cancel an interview because of us.
Right.
Because that falls on us. I mean, that makes us be the ones, and because we've had other wrestlers cancel interviews last second, but because they had something come up.
Right.
Yeah, hey, no harm, no foul. I mean, it happens.
I mean, it can't be helped.
Right. But for us, that means that, we're not doing a show at all.
Yeah.
And so, and that's on us. I mean, and both of us, we've had to cancel, thankfully we've never had to cancel an interview.
No, but thankfully. Yeah.
Thankfully, we've had to cancel because people got sick or, or maybe I'm still in my office at the time we're supposed to be recording. I'm still at the office. Yeah, it ain't gonna happen tonight or probably not tomorrow either.
Yeah, we're not gonna make it.
Not gonna make it. But thankfully my boss now, I mean, he knows about the podcast, obviously, and he tries to make sure, he even says, you know what, go home, record, and then get back online. So, and I've done that a couple times. You showed, I don't have it right here, but I've had my work laptop sitting right beside me.
Yep.
And a couple times I'm like, oh crap, I got to do this real quick as I'm discussing something.
Yeah.
But you know what? I mean, hey, it happens. I mean, that actually pays the bills. So
yeah. Yep.
But we do have topics. We actually have something that's going to be happening in late August. I don't want to spill the beans just yet because there's actually something we were discussing. We're going to have somebody else on the show. And I don't really know if I want to call it an interview or not because, it's like a third co-host. It is a guest though.
Yeah.
So, and I think it'll be a really good time. So we do have something lined up way in the future.
Yeah.
About a month and a half away ish. Yeah. And, so just so everybody know, we are looking at old school stuff. Thankfully my work has kind of slowed down some. So now we can try to get a little more organized.
Right.
Because we're going to be like, hey, we got a topic. I don't think we have a topic yet because I mean, it's just my work, Dwalen's work as both kind of boom. Cause I know there's some days you're like, man, cause I know you were covering for somebody.
Yeah.
And, so sometimes, I mean, unfortunately we have to make that a priority in our lives. Our families are our biggest priority. You know, sometimes the family stuff happens, it happens. And as we're speaking about that, in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be going down to Florida, moving my daughter down to Orlando because she's going to be part of the Disney College program.
Mhm.
Where right now we're already trying to figure out how we're going to work
Yeah.
recordings in on for this podcast and my other podcast.
Right.
You know, so if they don't get recorded, you know, because we're busy doing that, you know, we'll see. But the last time I went to Florida, I was still able to record. Um, it was a little harder because if the Wi-Fi, that's something else. If the Wi-Fi signal is
Yeah.
not the greatest,
Yeah.
because that one, I mean, it was a little bit of a struggle because the Wi-Fi signal was greatest. So I mean, the audio was kind of choppy, you know. But we'll have to just play it by ear. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
may have to do like a best of.
Yeah.
You know, that's something we've never done before, but we'll see. But we do still want to thank everybody for tuning in, listening to us, downloading us, yeah, especially if you subscribed. And once again, you know, just kind of want to give the info. If you want to get a hold of us, email armchairbookingpodcast@gmail. That's the best way to get a hold of us is through that. You can also go through our social medias. Just look up Armchair Booking Wrestling Podcast. Facebook, that's what the page is. Twitter, it's at Booking Armchair. And definitely go to the platforms, whichever one you prefer, subscribe. That way it automatically comes to your device, whether it be a tablet, whether it be a phone, you know. So, but thank you, everybody, and we'll see you, and God bless.
God bless.